The air aboard the research vessel Virellux 9 had the sterile, citrusy scent of over-sanitization. To Jarrek Watson, it smelled like the inside of a hospital had married a lemon and filed for divorce. He sat hunched on the bio bed, wrapped in a crinkly foil blanket that the ship's chief medic insisted was optimal for human thermal regulation. His nose was red, his eyes glassy, and every breath rattled like a loose screw in a blender. He coughed once wet, sharp, and echoing, and 3 of the alien researchers flinched so violently that one of them dropped a scanning pad. "Was that the pulmonary collapse?" asked Virellux, a tall, olive-skinned being with bioluminescent veins that pulsed more rapidly the longer he stared at Jarrek. "No," Jarrek croaked. "That was a cough. It sounded terminal." His Dr. Run, the vessel's lead xenophysiologist. He was shorter than Virellux, his skin a dull gray-green, and his eyes blinked sideways. "He needs a containment field. Now." "I'm not contagious," Jarrek muttered, voice cracking. "It's just a cold." "Just a cold," Virellux repeated, as if trying to wrap his vocal cords around a phrase from a cursed dialect. "You are excreting fluid from your olfactory passageways, your respiration is irregular, and your internal temperature is elevated by over 1.5 degrees. Your species is dying." "I'm not dying," Jarrek said, louder than he meant to. The effort made him cough again, which sent Rune scrambling behind a sanitation shield. From the corner, a 4th alien, Mern, and in turn with more curiosity than sense, approached cautiously. "He is not bleeding. There is no visible trauma. And yet, he cannot stand." "He should be in stasis," Rune insisted. "Or ejected." "I heard that," Jarrek wheezed. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, and Captain Yalari floated in, her gelatinous form gently pulsing with authority. "Report." Rune immediately stood straighter. "The human has contracted an aggressive biological condition. Symptoms include fluid secretion, impaired oxygen intake, and weakened musculature. Prognosis, highly fatal." Captain Yalari turned to Jarrek. "Is this true?" Jarrek coughed again and pulled the blanket tighter. "It's just a cold. Humans get it all the time. Give me some tea and a day or 2 in bed, and I'll be fine." Rune hissed again. "Captain, this is not a time for folklore. We must assume interspecies contagion. We should isolate the human in a sterilized pod and begin full virological mapping." Yalari considered for a long moment. "Begin mapping. But no pod. He remains here. But." "No pod," she repeated, her tone leaving no room for argument. As the others scurried to comply, Jarrek leaned back and groaned. "You'd think none of you have ever seen a sick person before." "We have seen the sick," Mern said. "But none that leak so much." 2 hours later, Jarrek was wheeled into a private observation chamber on level 6, tucked inside a transparent dome surrounded by monitoring equipment. He lay on a reclined cot, now swaddled in 3 layers of thermal blankets and sipping a steaming liquid that vaguely resembled tea. The ship's AI had scanned his memory for tea, but interpreted it as boiled plant water with nutritional enhancements, and added protein extract and electrolytes. It tasted like hot salad dressing. "Close enough," he muttered, taking another sip. Rune hovered outside the dome with a group of researchers taking detailed notes. "Subject appears to have stabilized after consuming a heated botanical infusion," Rune narrated. "Fluid output from nasal passages has decreased by 17%. Core temperature remains elevated but is no longer rising. Oxygen intake fluctuates, but remains within tolerable thresholds." Jarrek gave them a thumbs up through the glass. Rune ignored him. "Despite the severity of his symptoms, the human is showing resilience. We must determine whether this is a biological anomaly or a trait common to his species." Mern raised a tentative hand. "We could bring in another human for comparison." "There is only 1 human aboard," Virellux reminded him. "Then we must monitor him until resolution or expiration." Over the next 24 hours, Jarrek's condition worsened before it improved. He developed a fever that made him delusional. He called Virellux Uncle Craig and tried to high-five a cleaning drone. Once, he attempted to climb out of bed to fix the oil valve, despite not knowing what an oil valve was or where it might be. Yalari arrived during one of these episodes and found Jarrek singing a broken version of "Take Me Home," Country Roads, while trying to remove his socks with salad tongs. "Is this normal?" she asked. "For a fever dream?" "Sure," Jarrek sputtered before collapsing back into bed. The tea was changed to a milder blend, and rest was enforced with a mild sedative. For 2 days, Jarrek drifted in and out of sleep, his body fighting off the cold while the aliens documented every sneeze with the reverence of monks copying sacred texts. When he finally awoke feeling somewhat human again, the first thing he did was ask for toast. "What is toast?" Mern asked. "Bread that's been heated until it turns crunchy." "Why would you do that to bread?" "Because it's delicious." They brought him a plate of something resembling toast, though it had the texture of packing foam and tasted faintly of seaweed. Jarrek ate it anyway. Mern approached cautiously. "You are recovering?" "Yeah," Jarrek said, stretching his sore limbs. "Still a bit weak, but I'm definitely better." Run's eyes narrowed in disbelief. "You had a condition that caused internal inflammation, fluid leakage, and neurological confusion. And you solved it with heated plant water and sleep? It's not a solution. It's just what we do. Rest, hydrate, let the body do its thing." "This is not possible," Rin muttered. "Your internal systems should have collapsed. You should be. You should be dead." "Sorry to disappoint." Run turned to Yulari, who had been silently observing. "Captain, permission to run full genome deconstruction. This human is not consistent with known biological logic." Yulari tapped her chin. "You may run simulations only. No physical disassembly." Jarrek raised a hand. "Appreciate that." More tests followed. Jarrek donated blood samples, saliva, and even a toenail. The researchers built models, ran projections, and cross-referenced everything with the Earth health databanks they had on file. The results baffled them. "Healing without chemical intervention," Rune said, pacing the lab. "No antiviral agents, no tissue regeneration pods, no nanite treatments. It goes against everything we understand. Humans have immune systems," Mern offered quietly. "Complex ones." "Complex and reckless," Rune snapped. "They allow infection to proceed unchallenged until it is nearly fatal, and then simply endure it." Jarrek, now walking slowly on his own, popped his head into the lab. "We're not that reckless. It's just that colds aren't usually that serious." Run's eyes bulged. "Then why do they cause such devastation?" "Because they're annoying. Not deadly. They make you feel like garbage, but you bounce back." Yulari stepped forward. "So your species breaks down temporarily, then reestablishes equilibrium through rest and heated liquids?" "Pretty much." "This is madness," Run whispered. Yulari remained silent for a long time, then glanced at Jarrek. "Your endurance is noted. Return to your quarters. We will continue observation remotely." As Jarrek shuffled away, still sniffling but upright, the aliens watched him go with a mixture of awe and deep existential confusion. "I do not understand humans," Mern said. "Neither do I," Run admitted. "And I fear we never will." By the third rotation after Jarrek's recovery, the Virellux 9 had returned to its usual schedule of interstellar data collection and diplomatic liaison runs. The incident with the human's mild viral affliction had been filed under unresolved anomalies, biological, and restricted to Level 3 access. Jarrek, meanwhile, had resumed his duties cataloging Terran cultural data and translating idioms that consistently baffled the ship's AI. He was currently seated in the observation lounge, a wide, curved chamber with transparent walls that offered a sweeping view of the nebulae the ship drifted through. He was alone, save for Mern, who had taken to shadowing him with a mix of scientific curiosity and something bordering on friendship. "Why do you consume heat-treated starch wafers at intervals unrelated to nutritional necessity?" Mern asked without looking up from his datapad. "They're called crackers," Jarrek said, mouth full. "And because I'm bored." "You are not hungry?" "Nope." Mern tilted his head. "Do you eat when you are not hungry often?" "Pretty much whenever I feel like it." "But that is inefficient." "That's humanity in a nutshell." Mern stared at the crackers again, then made a note. "Your digestive system tolerates this?" "Mostly." Jarrek leaned back and exhaled. The stars outside pulsed like slow heartbeats. He had almost started to feel normal again, until the motion sensor embedded in his skin pinged and the door to the lounge opened with a soft whir. Run entered, flanked by 2 assistant researchers. All 3 wore sterile blue coats and awkward expressions. "I am not contagious," Jarrek said before anyone could speak. "We are not here for that," Run replied. "We require your assistance." "That's a dangerous sentence." Run approached, holding a small metallic case. "We have isolated a protein sequence from your immune response. It is unique. Adaptive, yet highly unpredictable. Sounds like me. We have synthesized a derivative and introduced it into a controlled microbial simulation. The result was unexpected." Jarrek narrowed his eyes. Define unexpected. The simulated pathogens ceased replication, then began destroying each other. Mern blinked. Cannibalistic microbes? Self-targeting, Run clarified. We believe your immune sequence induced a form of existential confusion in the microorganisms. They no longer recognized which cells were self. Jarrek dropped his cracker. You gave germs an identity crisis? Yes. That's actually kind of amazing. Run's expression didn't change. We wish to test the protein further, but we require your cooperation. I already gave you blood. What now? You want a kidney? No. A stress sample. Jarrek blinked. What? We need to observe your immune response under induced psychological stress to see if the protein alters behavior. Jarrek shifted on the couch. So you want to scare me? No. We want to place you in a mildly stressful environment and monitor your biological output. That sounds like the same thing. It will be controlled, monitored, safe. Jarrek looked at Mern. Has anyone else on the ship volunteered for this? There are no others with your immune profile, Mern said quickly. Jarrek sighed. Fine. But if this turns into some kind of alien haunted house, I'm out. They led him 2 decks down, past the propulsion labs and through a corridor labeled Cognitive Simulation Bay. The walls here were matte black and laced with subtle light pulses. The air smelled faintly like ozone and something else burnt sugar. Inside the bay, a padded chamber waited. It was featureless aside from a single reclining chair and a circular light fixture overhead. Sit, Run instructed. Jarrek sat. Mern handed him a headset. This will project a series of simulated scenarios. Nothing harmful. Just agitating. Jarrek put it on. The world vanished. The first simulation dropped him into a bureaucratic office with no doors. A line of people stretched endlessly before him, all holding forms half filled with illegible handwriting. A voice over a speaker insisted he had to process every form before he could leave. He lasted 3 minutes before muttering, "This is just the DMV with worse lighting." The next simulation placed him on a narrow bridge suspended over an endless void. Below, something slithered and whispered his name repeatedly. He took 3 steps before sitting down and humming to block it out. By the 5th scenario, a malfunctioning coffee machine that took credits but never dispensed anything. Jarrek yanked the headset off. All right, he said, breathing hard. That one was cruel. Run was already scanning the readouts. Elevated cortisol. Increased white cell activity. Fascinating. You guys are really committed to this, huh? We have never encountered a system like yours. It escalates under duress, then stabilizes without external regulation. It contradicts every model we possess. Welcome to Earth biology. It's basically organized chaos. Run tapped a control panel. We will need to repeat the test with a more dynamic sequence. No more coffee machines. Understood. The next round involved a simulation of Jarrek's high school gym teacher, except this one was 12 feet tall and demanded he demonstrate long division while jogging. When the session ended, Jarrek was drenched in sweat and slightly dizzy. You're pushing it, he muttered. Mern handed him a rehydration capsule. Your vitals are consistent with moderate exertion. Nothing alarming. Speak for yourself. That guy had a whistle that could shatter glass. Run was already reviewing the latest data. The protein remains stable, but exhibits variability depending on emotional input. You mean it changes based on how I feel? More accurately, it reconfigures when you are angry or confused. Jarrek raised an eyebrow. So my immune system is mood-dependent? To a degree. That explains a lot, actually. They escorted him back to his quarters with strict instructions to rest. Jarrek, still a little lightheaded, sat on his bunk and stared at the ceiling. He was halfway to sleep when the comm panel on the wall chirped. This is Yolari. He sat up. Still alive, Captain. Roan has submitted authorization for a final test. We need your approval. What kind of test? An exposure simulation. Controlled pathogen. Harmless to your species. We want to confirm if the protein activates in anticipation or only in response. Jarrek rubbed his temples. So you're going to fake infect me and see if I freak out? Essentially. He lay back, staring at nothing. Let's do it tomorrow. Agreed. The line went silent. The next rotation, Jarrek stood in a sealed chamber lit by soft blue lights. A faint mist filled the room, carrying a synthetic compound designed to mimic viral presence without causing harm. He felt nothing at first, then a dull warmth in his chest. His limbs tensed. Not fear, more like alertness. Run's voice crackled over the intercom. Readings are fluctuating. The protein is active. It is adapting faster than before. Jarrek exhaled slowly. You guys are really enjoying this, aren't you? We are learning. Nothing happened for 5 minutes. Then the mist cleared and the door opened. Jarrek stepped out, nerves buzzing but body intact. Run met him with a data pad. Your immune profile has altered again. More efficient. Faster. It is learning. Yeah, well, so am I. Run looked up. About what? Jarrek shrugged. How much weirdness I can tolerate before I start charging for it. He walked off without waiting for permission, passing Mern on the way. The intern looked up from his notes. Did it hurt? Only my pride. They watched him go. He is strange, Mern said. Unpredictable, Mern agreed. Yet functional. For now. And somewhere deep in the ship's databanks, a new report was logged. Subject demonstrates adaptive immunity with emotional modulation. Further study recommended. Caution advised. 3 days after the last test, Jarrek woke up to find the ceiling blinking at him. It wasn't a metaphor. The lighting panel above his bunk was pulsing in soft, irregular intervals, dim, bright, like it couldn't decide whether it was a light or a lighthouse with commitment issues. He blinked back at it, groggy, feeling the sort of vague dizziness that usually came from either dehydration or alien science. He pushed himself upright, slowly, joints stiff but functional. No fever, no chills, breathing normal. He pressed 2 fingers to his neck. Pulse steady. The after effects of the simulations had worn off, but he hadn't felt quite right since waking yesterday. Something was off, not painful, but wrong in the way a doorknob feels when it turns too easily in your hand. He swung his legs over the edge of the bunk and stood. The floor was cool against his feet, the air dry and sterile. The room's humidity had shifted again, probably a side effect of the environmental calibrators readjusting after the last batch of biological testing. He grabbed his comm badge off the table and tapped it once. Observation to Med Lab, he said. I think whatever you did to me is still doing something. There was a short pause, just long enough to make him imagine they were deciding whether or not to pretend they hadn't heard him. Then, acknowledged. Proceed to Med Lab 6. Immediate priority. He sighed and pulled on the nearest uniform, still slightly damp from yesterday's failed attempt to clean it using the ship's universal fabric refresher, which smelled suspiciously like burnt cinnamon. Med Lab 6 was 2 decks down, past the Xenobotany greenhouse and one of the ship's vertical gravity shafts. Jarrek took the longer route, avoiding the shaft after last week's incident when it had reversed polarity mid-ascent, slamming him against the ceiling at considerable speed. He'd spent the rest of the afternoon explaining bruises shaped like punctuation marks to a very concerned Mern. When he arrived, Run was already waiting, flanked by a new face tall, with a shimmering coat of scales that shifted color as she moved. She didn't speak, but her eyes tracked every motion Jarrek made from the moment he stepped into the lab. You're early, Run said, not looking up from the console. You said immediate priority. I thought that meant, don't stop for breakfast. Do not consume anything yet. We require an unaltered baseline. Great, Jarrek muttered, sliding onto the diagnostic table. Nothing like fasting to improve a man's mood. The scanner arm descended from the ceiling. It hovered above him, humming quietly, as lights swept from head to toe in a tight spiral. She's new, Jarrek said, nodding toward the tall alien in the corner. Dr. The Liv, epidemiological systems analyst. She's here to verify that what's happening to you isn't contagious. Jarrek tilted his head. You think I'm contagious now? No, The Liv said, voice low and gravelly. But your immune adaptation is exhibiting autonomous behavior. English. Rin gestured to the monitor. Your immune cells are replicating independently of stimulus. They're building new structures. Patterns we've never documented. They're reorganizing. You're saying my immune system is evolving? In real time, without external instruction. Jarrek looked at the screen. The image showed microscopic cells forming spiraling threads, interlocking like a puzzle with no defined edges. Is that bad? It depends if it stops. And if it doesn't? You could become a walking antibody factory. Or worse, a feedback loop. Your system might begin targeting neutral cells. Autoimmune disorder? A possibility. Or it could stabilize and grant you permanent immunity to a wide spectrum of pathogens. Well, that's comforting, Jarrek muttered. Either I become indestructible or I melt from the inside. We are monitoring closely. The Liv stepped forward. Do you feel any changes? Neurological anomalies? Memory disruptions? I remembered my third-grade locker combination in the shower this morning. That count. Neither of them laughed. Run tapped the console again. We'll need a marrow sample. Jarrek groaned. You guys need to stop using the word sample so casually. The procedure was swift, sterile, and deeply unpleasant. Jarrek gritted his teeth through it, refusing to give Run the satisfaction of a complaint. When it was over, he sat up slowly, rotating his shoulder to test for stiffness. Anything else? He asked. The Liv studied the sample under a magnifier. You're producing a new class of lymphocytes. They're unusually large. Like bodybuilder white blood cells? Run didn't answer. He was already exporting the data to the central biocore. By late cycle, Jarrek was back in his quarters, sipping water and watching a rerun of an old Terran sitcom the ship's entertainment library had flagged as psychologically stabilizing. The laugh track echoed faintly as he leaned back, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest. Not pain, just pressure. Like something inside him was winding tighter by the hour. The door buzzed. He didn't answer. It opened anyway. Mern entered, holding a bio satchel. I brought a stabilizing agent. Just in case. Jarrek rubbed his eyes. They send you to dope me up? I volunteered. Mern sat on the edge of the chair opposite him, setting the satchel aside. They think I'm mutating, don't they? Jarrek asked. Your immune system is. You're still you. Mostly. That's not as reassuring as you think it is. Mern hesitated, then leaned forward. We've never seen anything like this. Not just the rate any species can adapt, given time, but yours is doing it mid-cycle. Without crisis. It's choosing to change. Jarrek frowned. You think it's conscious? Not in the way you are. But maybe in the way forests are. Or coral reefs. Systems that react, remember. Shift based on need. I didn't need anything, Jarrek said. I was fine. Mern didn't answer. He stayed a while, silent, until Jarrek finally dozed off. When he left, he took the satchel with him. By the next waking period, things had stabilized. Jarrek's vitals were steady. No fever. No cell abnormalities. The spiraling lymphocytes had stopped replicating. The pressure in his chest was gone. Run confirmed it twice. Homeostasis achieved, he said, sounding both disappointed and relieved. The Liv concluded her analysis and returned to the epidemiology wing. No further tests were scheduled. As Jarrek stepped out of the med lab for what he hoped was the last time, Mern caught up to him near the junction. You're clear, Mern said, smiling in that slightly off way only species with vertical jaws could. You're done. Feels like I should get a certificate. You probably should. They walked in silence for a moment. You know, Mern said, we've had over 30 species aboard this ship. Dozens of physiological issues. But yours, it was different. Not because it was dangerous, but because it wasn't. Jarrek paused. We get sick. We recover. Not like that. Not with so little. You didn't fight it. You endured it. That distinction matters. Jarrek gave a small nod. Well, if you ever get the sniffles, I've got some tea that'll knock your socks off. I don't wear socks. Then it'll knock your foot membranes off. Mern laughed an actual laugh, high-pitched and brief. Then he handed Jarrek a small data chip. What's this? Your immune sequence. In case you want to see what all the fuss was about. Jarrek pocketed it. Thanks. But I think I'll stick with crackers and naps. They parted ways at the corridor split, Jarrek heading toward the lounge, Mern back to the labs. Back in the observation deck, Jarrek settled into his usual seat. The stars outside glimmered in long, slow arcs. He didn't feel different. Not really. Maybe a little heavier in the chest. A little clearer in the head. Like something inside him had adjusted a dial he didn't know existed. But mostly, he just felt human. And apparently, that was enough to confuse an entire ship of scientists.